When you're watching Back to the Future Part 3, if there was ever a conclusion more satisfying, right? This movie does it very, very well. It is the perfect, you know what I mean? I think it's a pretty great way to end the trilogy. I think they did a great job at giving it a heart. They did a great job at giving it, you know what I mean? They gave it just so much soul, so much joy. There's a lot of it's really touching, you know what I mean? And I think the fact that they go back to the 1800s makes it all just makes it a lot more fun. It makes it a lot more special. And it really makes me think that, like, what if you could go back that far? You know what I mean? What would you do with the time that you have? What would you choose for your life? You know what I'm saying? So, picks up right after Back to the Future Part 2, where they just sent first movie Marty back to 1985, and then the future Marty runs up to Doc in 1955 and tells him that he's back from the future, takes Doc back to his home, does the whole thing, and now here we are. He has to figure out how to essentially get Doc how to get himself back to 1985. That's the idea. That's the plan. So, how does this all work, right? Because the current Marty doesn't have a time machine anymore, and his past self just went to the future in 1985. So where's his last time machine? How can he get home? And essentially the way that it worked out is Doc left the time machine in like a cave near Hill Valley. So at any given point in time, right, there was like 3 time machines in 1955, I think. There was the one that Marty brought from the future to the past. There was the one that they took to 1955 to get the book back from Biff. And then there was this third one that was hiding in a cave that Doc left, which is kind of like there's 3 time machines in 1955, and it's kind of like, whoa, you know what I mean? It's a whole cycle, but, things have to happen a certain way. But anyways, he left the time machine in a cave, in a tunnel, whatever. And now, in 1955, they're going to have the past Doc fix up the time machine, and then they're going to be able to send Marty back to 1985. But they soon find out that Doc was killed not long after he sent the letter to Marty. So now he has to go back and save him. So what I like about just the beginning aspect of it, I think it was really cool that they had what's it called? I thought that it was really cool that Doc sent the letter to the future, right, from the past. I liked Doc's, what's it called? I like the way that he wasn't making it about himself, right? He could have easily been like, come back to the past and you can come back and get me, you know what I mean? Or you can do all this other stuff. But he's actually quite content with where he is. I honestly, yeah, he's quite, he likes it back in the past, right? He becomes a blacksmith. He's there for a couple months. He's like, I'm doing okay. You know what I mean? You go back to the future and live out your life. You know what I mean? You're a good friend, and that's all I can ask for. And I thought to myself, I was like, why wouldn't he want to come back? And it's just like, but all the luxuries that the future has for him, he'd still rather stay in the past. So I was just like, how, why, and you know, he could have really improved things, but he doesn't do all that much. He just stays Doc, but he's just like, limited by the technology of his time. Anyways, moving on, they fix up the time machine, and now they have the plan to go to the past to get Doc back. And then they go to the past. Time machine gets destroyed or whatever. I mean, not destroyed. It just leaks of gasoline. Yeah, I think it was gasoline. He, what's it called? He cut a pipe or like one of those hoses or whatever, and then the gasoline leaked out, so he has to patch it up and then fill it up with gasoline. Anyways, goes back to the past, and I like the part where Doc continuously tells Marty that, like, well, what he's like driving back to the past, and he's kind of talking about a poster in front of him, and he's like, well, if I keep on driving that way, I'm going to run into the Indians. And Doc is like, you're not thinking fourth dimensionally here, okay? You're going to drive into the past, and those Indians won't even be there. And then he drives into the past, and the Indians are there. It's just very funny stuff like that happens. The idea that the science and what you feel, or like what your eyes tell you, are very different things. Anyways, I could tell that the movie has kind of like, you can tell it was shot a long time ago, because when I see when he goes into the past and he hides the time machine in a cave, there's a bear in there, and the bear is very, it very well could have been, they could have gotten a real black bear or whatever to be in the cave or something, but it just doesn't look, it has like a CGI, or like they edited the bear in. They did a good job at it, you know what I mean? I'm sure people were amazed at the time, or they were like, oh snap, that's crazy. But for me, whenever I watch that sequence, I'm just like, man, that's heavily, you know what I mean? They green screened it or whatever they had to do. It's not bad, you know what I mean? They had to do it. It would have been freaky if they... You never know what could go wrong. But anyways, eventually, Marty goes back to Hill Valley, and he sees the whole town being constructed. They're working on the clock tower. They are a town and community, and it's just old Western. And for the life of me, they continuously find a way to have fun with the characters and like really just have them be explored, right? The Biff character, or the Griff or whatever, right? The actor who plays Biff, dude, time and time again does he continue to amaze me. He is so good at being the villain, being the heel, or whatever you want to call it. He is so good at it that it's almost hilarious how different they can change up the quote-unquote villain. First, he's just the typical like work buddy / bully. Then he's the high school bully. Then he's the old man, the grumpy old man, and then he's back to being a bully again. And then he's this kind of wuss almost, right? Like he's kind of like, oh, I'm here for whatever you need, Mr. McFly. And he's like waxing cars and whatnot. And then there's this character, and then there's like billionaire Biff, right? And then there's now Western Griff, or Biff, my bad. I keep getting Griff from the future and past Biff confused. But then we have way Western Biff, or Mad Dog Tannen, and he still delivers. You know what I mean? He gives the perfect accent. He's just fantastic as the character, and I thought that was awesome. So anyways, we're back at it again, and we see Marty gets in trouble again with Mad Dog Tannen, and there's this funny part where he's going like, Mad Dog is yelling at him. He's like, dance, boy, dance. He's shooting at his feet, and then Marty starts doing the moonwalk. He starts being Michael Jackson. He starts going crazy and stuff. He does a full spin around. He hits the ground, and like a spit bucket goes flying at Mad Dog Tannen, and now it's like complete disrespect. It's time to kill. And now Mad Dog is going after Marty. He hangs him. He literally hangs him. And then that's when Doc comes in and shoots the rope and saves Marty's life. And now there's a dispute between Mad Dog Tannen and Doc, where they're like, he says something along the lines of, you shoed my horse, but then the shoe came off and I spilled some whiskey. So, you know, he was like, it's your fault. And then Doc is like, well, you didn't pay me for shoeing your horse, so that makes us even. He's like, no, because I lost a lot. He's like, so the way I see it is, you owe me $5 for the whiskey. You owe me $75 for the shoe that my horse threw off, and you owe me $5 for the whiskey. So that's $80 you owe me. And Doc is like, that's not happening. I'm not paying you a dime because you didn't pay me for anything. So if you need your horse reshoot, I'll do it. And he's like, dang it, I killed the horse already. And he was like, well, then that's your problem, Tannen, not mine. You know what I mean? I didn't kill your horse. You could have gotten another tailor. You could have gotten another shoeing from me. And he was just like, oh, whatever. Just know you have to watch your back because there's going to be a bullet in it. And I love that. I love that exchange between the two of them. It sets up the his inevitable, you know what I mean? His death, Doc's death, how he dies. And then Doc and Marty reunite. They come back together, and Doc makes fun of Marty's clothes, and Marty's like, you're the one who dressed me, you know what I mean? And then they kind of talk about how they're going to get Marty back, how they're both going to get back, what happens to Doc, you know, in a few days' time. So now it's Doc getting brought up to speed, that he gets killed by Mad Dog Tannen for $80, that Marty came back into the past to get him, but that the time machine has leaked all of its gasoline, and Doc is like, there's not going to be a gas station here for centuries, like, you know what I mean, for decades. It's impossible to get you home. The time machine runs on gasoline. You know what I mean? So he's like, this is not good. So they're like, well, if we can't use gasoline, how are we going to get the time machine up to 88 miles per hour? So now they're both brainstorming, and they both have and they get like a carriage of horses pulling the time machine. They try any number of things, and they're just like, oh man, you know what I mean? We're gonna be in a lot of trouble. So they're trying experiment after experiment. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that Marty runs into his past family. You know what I mean? The Seamus McFly. You know what I mean? We run into them, but that's not all that important. And then, oh so brilliantly, the train is coming to Hill Valley. So they plan on stealing the train, well, borrowing the train, I guess. Well, they're not going to give it back, so they're stealing the train, okay? Then they're going to push the time machine to 88 miles per hour, sending Marty and Doc into the future, and then all's well that ends well. You know what I mean? So they have the plan. Now they just need to execute it. When does the next train come? How do they do it? And what do they have to do? And in that time, the worst thing happens. Doc meets someone. He meets a woman. Okay? Her name is Clara, and it was just instant chemistry, instant attraction. I mean, from the moment he saw her and she saw him, as soon as they locked eyes, it was as if it was destiny that the two of them were to be united as one. So now we have the external conflict, which is the time machine and the train and getting to the future. We have Marty, who is, we have Doc, who's going to get killed by Mad Dog. We have Marty trying to get to the future, and then there's the getting the time machine to the future, and then there's the love interest that's like complicated, because it's like, if Doc stays, he can be with Clara. If he goes away, he's not going to be with Clara. There's internal conflict inside of Doc, you know what I mean? Whereas Marty, he's more so like, I'm going to the future, you know what I mean? I'm going to get Jennifer, you know what I'm saying? So what do I have to do to get there? You know what I'm saying? Type of a feeling. So now we see that Marty and Doc are just kind of like, after they save Clara, they realize the impact that their heroics are going to cause for the future. There's not going to be any more Clara Clayton Ravine. I forget what it's called. It's like Clara Clayton Ravine, and there's not going to be any more of that. And there's going to be like small impacts, but it's not going to be anything crazy. So now we kind of see, you know what I mean? Now we sort of see Clara and Doc start snuggling up to each other, right? Talking about telescopes and sciences. And, you could tell that they were going to, you know what I mean? You knew that they were going to get it on. But you just, you know what I mean? It's a buildup. So then it's the Hill Valley Festival or party, or there's like some sort of a gathering, dance party, whatever. And Doc is going so that he could be with Clara. And Marty's going to watch over Doc so that way he doesn't get killed by Mad Dog Tannen. And now it's just everything goes down at the party, right? Doc dances with Clara. Marty defends Doc and saves him, and then stands up to Mad Dog Tannen. He calls him yellow, and then now Marty's like, "Oh yeah." So like now they're gonna what's it called? Have a standoff. They're gonna shoot each other. They're gonna have a proper Western shootout or whatever it's called. And now the tombstone that read Doc's grave has changed, and now it's going to be Marty's tombstone, because he's going to be in a fight have a shootout with Mad Dog Tannen, and now it's a bigger deal. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, cut to the chase here, all right? There were a lot of great nods to past movies or like Western movies and whatnot. There were a lot of great storytelling beats. There were a lot of great moments where I look at Doc and I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? He's finally happy. He's met someone who's interested in the same things as he is. He's met someone who he really loves, you know what I'm saying? But he has to make a choice. He has to decide, you know what I mean? The past, you know what I mean? Love or science, right? Like love in his heart or what's up in his brain? You know what I mean? How do you choose, right? And in the end, Doc is like, I have to go to the future. I don't, you know what I mean? He doesn't technically belong there. He was never there in the first place, right? So it's like he shouldn't be there. So anyways, now it's up to the heist. It's up to steal the train and then push the time machine. But the morning of, Doc is so depressed after telling Clara that he basically tells Clara the whole truth and she doesn't believe him, and now he's heartbroken. And now he's like, well, now I have no choice but to steal the train and to do the time machine and whatnot. So now it's Marty and Doc trying to beat time, trying to survive, right? Doc takes one shot of whiskey and then he's out like a light. And now Marty's trying to wake him up so that way he doesn't have to fight Mad Dog Tannen in a shootout. And now it's just a back and forth. And finally Marty faces him, right? But he doesn't shoot him. He puts on like this protective gear and Mad Dog shoots him in the chest. But Marty protected himself, and then he stands up and he beats up Mad Dog, puts him into manure yet again, and then they escape and they run. They try to get out of there and go to the train. Now Clara is like, oh my gosh, I love Doc. I want to be with him. And so now she's like, where do I get to him? And she's like chasing him as they're on the train, as they're in the time machine, all at the last minute. And so, long story short, Marty makes it back to the future. Doc saves Clara because she was about to die. And the train explodes, falling off of the bridge. Sorry. And at the last second, he saves her, stays in the past. Marty goes to the future. The time machine gets destroyed by a future train. And now, who knows what's going to happen next? You know what I'm saying? But fortunately, Doc created a train time machine. And he goes back and he tells Marty, hey man, I'm alive, I'm well, I'm doing okay. You know what I mean? It's so good to see you. How are you? Blah, 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 blah. And now, there's this moment where Doc shows off his family, his two sons, and Jennifer comes back. Marty finds her and is essentially like, look, I have this paper from the future and it doesn't have anything on it. And for my whole life, I was just kind of like, why doesn't Doc just tell her she's crazy and walk away like, look at this blank piece of paper I have. It's like, what? Like, that is so... I just felt like that was so stupid. I was like, look, she was just like, look at this piece of paper I got from the future. I would have been like, that's nice, Jennifer. Like, what? What is that? You know what I mean? But anyways, and Doc essentially points out that their futures are not written anymore. You know what I mean? They can make life whatever it is possible. And that's the true message of it all. You know what I mean? Of all the Time Machine, Back to the Future movies, it's all about, sort of community. Not community. It's sort of about like, how do you use your time, right? Do you use it for the right things? And you can make your life whatever you want it to be, Just like George was able to make his life the way he wanted it to be, where he's an author and he can create stories, and he's married Lorraine for not getting hit by a car, but by saving her, right? He's a hero in her eyes. You know what I'm saying? He's able to live a good and happy life. And Biff, as as many times as he's the bad guy, he could choose to be different. But that's the reason why he is the way he is. He doesn't choose a different life. He chooses what his life eventually becomes. You know what I mean? He chooses to be a billionaire, a bad and greedy billionaire. He chooses to be a bad husband. He chooses to be mean and angry and resentful. You know what I'm saying? And he could choose something else. And Marty makes a different choice. You know what I mean? He chooses not to care what people call him. He chooses his own opinion and what he believes about himself, his own self-worth. Doc chooses love and a family and also science. You know, it's not a one or nothing. It's just the choices that we make, the things that we choose to be, what matters in our lives. And then there's, you know, so many other people in the story that can make a different choice, that can choose to be better, that can choose a different life for themselves. And that's for everybody, you know what I mean? No matter how late in life, you can always choose what your future is going to be. You can always decide what tomorrow is going to become, you know? And that's the cool message behind it. That's the thing I like about it most, is that you have to really tackle it all from the earliest point possible. What else is there? I also just like the idea that nothing's written in stone anymore. You know what I mean? There's no more of a, what's it called? Quote unquote, like a fact of life, you know, fact of the future. You know what I mean? There's no, you did this, so now this is going to happen kind of a thing, right? It's more so like, now you can make your life whatever you need it to be, whatever you want, you know what I'm saying? So make the most of it. And then at the end, Doc is like traveling in the time machine. And Marty's like, where are you going? Back to the future? He's like, no, I've already been there. He's like, so then the past. And he's like, been there too. So now he's just saying he's just going to live life in the present because that's the best part, right? It's not about seeing what comes next or staying where you were, you know, or looking how things used to be. It's about being in the present moment and enjoying it for what it is now, right now, not for what's going to come next year or the year after or 20 years, 30 years, however far in the future, right? It's not about worrying about what happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago or yesterday. It's about understanding now. Right now, you have a choice to make in your life. And you can choose to stay stuck back there just like they were physically stuck in the past. Or you can choose to, you know, how often do we get to right our past wrongs? You know what I'm saying? How often do we get to go back and really get like any sort of closure for things in our past, you know what I mean? Any feelings of guilt or resentment or situations where we wished we had done certain things differently, you know what I mean? I wish I stood up for myself here. I wish I wasn't so shy. I wish I had been more outgoing and so much more confident in who I am. I wish I didn't care what people thought of me as much. I wish I had done this. I wish I hadn't talked to this person that way, or things had, I didn't act that certain way towards this certain someone, or, you know, I wished I had more empathy or more of a understanding of other people or of this person and their situation, right? But, you know, we hardly ever get those chances back or that moment again to go back and to right wrongs in the same way that maybe Marty and Doc were able to go into the past and fix, you know, Marty was able to save his parents' marriage and his life, you know, and Doc was able to help himself go into the past and save him, you know what I'm saying, and give him a family, a future, you know what I'm saying, 2 sons and a life, you know what I'm saying? So it's very beautiful the way that things work out for them and the physical story, right? But mentally, what I'm talking about is just that we're never going to have a time machine to go back and fix certain things. physically. But we can mentally relieve ourselves or kind of forgive ourselves for our past wrongs and choose today to be better, to make a different choice than we would have back then. You know what I'm saying? And in there, that's the beautiful part, is in today, in this moment, not in tomorrow, So it's such a beautiful theme, it's such a beautiful story to tell, and the fact that they were able to do this in like the first movie came out in 1985 or whatever, whenever, it was just the coolest thing, and it's such a classic movie because it's timeless, right? It fits, it's universals for so many people, so it just makes sense that that's what this movie is and what it's come to. And I'm a really big fan of the story it tells, and every now and again, I have to remind myself and I have to tell myself that this movie is fun, science fiction, whatever, but it's more so like a test of my my mental, my mental strength and my ability to understand that right here, right now, you can be anything. And if you don't start trying, if you don't start realizing that for yourself, for your own life, you're never gonna become who you want to be. You know what I'm saying? So it's never too late. Never too late for anybody to change their present, to make their future what they want it to be. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Great movie, great trilogy. I really like these movies, and if you've never watched them, you shouldn't be listening to this, first of all right? Big spoilers for Back to the Future, but, I'm sure you get it, right? You get that. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.